Welcome to Implement This with Microsoft Business Solutions MVP Britta Rexted and co-host Matthew C. Anderson, where we have an insider's discussion around the things we consider when implementing Dynamics 365. In today's episode, sponsored by Ingenious, Britta and I discuss customer service and the Interactive Service Hub. Ingenious Connector Enterprise integrates your telephone system into Dynamics 365 and CRM for increased phone agent productivity. The solution equips service desks and contact centers with features like screen pop, click-to-dial, automated call logging, and call reports for a comprehensive view of interactions. Enable efficient customer service and intelligent decision-making with Ingenious. We thank Ingenious for their sponsorship, and now, on with the show. And now we're back with another episode of Implement This. Hi, Britta. How are you?
Good, Matt. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm actually quite excited because we're starting this with another listener question.
That's awesome. I love that we're getting so many. It has a good rhythm to it.
Yes, this one comes from Alan. Hi, Britta and Matthew. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Thanks for a great podcast. Enjoy listening to it on my way to work. I have a question regarding customer service implementations. What would be the recommended platform to suggest to customers? Interactive Service Hub or a customer service app built on UCI? What are the pros and cons of each direction, and which would you recommend? Thanks for discussing, Alan.
Thanks, Alan. That's a really good question. I think one that's not uncommon to ask. Luckily, it has a very straightforward answer.
Yes.
What's the answer, Matt?
Yeah, so the answer on this one is that the Interactive Service Hub, which was introduced a couple of years back in kind of the more as an alternative to the traditional classic interface of Dynamics 365, that has been replaced with the app interface or the unified client. So this in this case, if somebody is already deployed using Interactive Service Hub, they can continue using that today. But if you're looking at talking with somebody who is looking at doing a new implementation of customer service, you will want to go the direction of building the app using the unified interface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good we got some great features out of that tool, and so I'm happy we're getting those rolled in now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Knowledge base got so much better. That was such a step forward. Some cool things in dashboards and other things.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. I mean, customer service specifically, you can't even update things like knowledge base articles without using the new interface. Mm-hmm. So that is going to be your definite destination for those. Just by way of a little bit of disambiguation, because there are a lot of very similar terms
yes.
around this stuff, especially when you're talking customer service. So we have the classic interface of Dynamics 365. I don't think people are getting confused about that, but we definitely have the Interactive Service Hub, which had been around for a while and was deployed automatically or available automatically to a lot of customers.
And it was a lightweight app to make it less confusing. So it was a way of taking your customer service people, putting them in a specific app just for them. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the beginning of those apps for us. It was not the full everything you think of Dynamics. It was very skinny down.
Yeah, exactly. So, and kind of the evolution of that and having that go beyond just customer service in the Interactive Service Hub is really the apps that leverage the unified interface in Dynamics. And those apps are available on web client, in a mobile client, and additionally, as of the 3.3 release of Unified Service Desk, those apps are now available in the Unified Service Desk, or USD as it's often referred to if you search around online.
Yeah, so good because the terms are so close, good to draw a very clear line distinguishing the difference between the Interactive Service Hub, which is the lightweight app that we don't need anymore because we have all that goodness inside of the product, and Unified Service Desk, which is a totally different animal.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that when you're looking at the customer service app that's available, there are now two. When you provision a new instance of Dynamics 365 today, you'll actually see two different flavors of customer service. You'll see just a customer service app that uses the traditional classic interface of Dynamics 365, the one going back for since circa the 2013 release for that general look and feel. But there's
a lot of white space.
Yes, a lot of white space. If you're in 2016, a little gray space in there as well. But then there's also the customer service hub, which is it shows up in the drop-down from Dynamics 365 as a different app, even though it's focused on that customer service workload. So you access it the same way, but that's going to be the quite different and streamlined, unified client that works across each of those different platforms, as we were talking about before.
Nice. Thank you for clarifying. That's a good thing to mix in there. So to further confuse things, why don't we bring in a lot of the other tools we have now? So a lot of times when we start talking about customer service, we end up wandering into field service, which we have a lot there to work with. Actually, having worked in the products a little bit, it feels to me like field service is closer to project service than it is to customer service. As far as the skill set, what you need to implement. From an implementation perspective, they share a lot of the same entities. They were brought together. I mean, the origins of the field service application was through an acquisition. The project service was built in-house by Microsoft, but the timing of those two and the similarities between, hey, you have people who are going to work on things, there's a lot of commonality between those. So, within the product, they leverage a lot of the same components, and even to the point where looking at that next step, the customer service serves as a foundation to a lot of those components, even though there's plenty in project service and field service that you're just not going to touch in a customer service type of implementation. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, there's features that I use all of the time, even when the group of users wouldn't refer to themselves as the customer service department. I think customer service is probably my favorite of all the apps because there's so much power there. The queues are so powerful, and routing rules and all the different pieces of extra automation. Even just the fact with cases that it's the only record that you can have activities roll up to, but then it itself is an activity.
Yeah.
I've always wished that we could clone that and have a custom version of the case because I want to use it all over the place. But I think there's really, really important functionality in that app.
Yeah, and as we look at project service and field service, some of the things that come along with those are really fun and exciting for me, especially the universal scheduling engine that sits inside of those. It's probably worthwhile for its own podcast episode or having some discussion around it, but while the way you get your hands on that scheduling engine is through project service or field service, you can actually use it for a heck of a lot more than just those two workloads. So you tuck that one away perhaps for another day, but that type of functionality and the way it's being shared across the different kind of workloads that are available inside of Dynamics is really exciting for me as we see kind of service get more and more expansive within Dynamics.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So how would you coach a customer through where USD comes into play?
So when we start looking at USD, that's typically going to be in that customer service version of those. So not so much on field service, not so much on project service. And one of the most common places you see it is in a call center application. USD or Unified Service Desk being this connection point to be able to surface up not only Dynamics 365, but as well as other additional information, whether that's third-party apps, whether that's interacting with a local application that somebody's running on their desktop, whether that's even doing screen scraping for an old green screen going against a mainframe. There are still call centers where people rely on those tools. And where Unified Service Desk can come in is it allows us to be able to stitch those things together and start to get some efficiency in the workflow or that progression of the call. And by the way, we get all these great things like call scripting and action automation, and we can have a lot more control over custom buttons to be able to make actions go out and do fancy behind-the-scenes things interacting with other apps. But that the more detailed that you go there, the more likely it is that you're hitting into developer territory because you're hitting an API for this other application or having to go through a more rigorous kind of application lifecycle management process because Unified Service Desk is in itself a specialized application for getting to all of these other apps, mainly centralized around, kind of Dynamics 365.
Yeah, and I think unified is that really important word there, because that's bringing everything together. We don't – sometimes we have the luxury of working on an implementation that is entirely inside Dynamics, or at least entirely inside the cloud. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of our customers, it's just not reality. You know, they have legacy systems they can't replace for one reason or another, or other things they need to stitch together. And so there's an amazing user adoption opportunity there. So instead of sending someone to 17 different platforms to get what they need, they can have it all in one place.
Yeah. Well, and, just from a pure security perspective, there are some things that you don't want to be able to have a web-based application do on the actual desktop side of somebody's computer. I mean, if they have one of these legacy applications, calling that from a web-based application, there's the potential for people to behave badly. Mm-hmm. If browsers are going to have those types of capabilities opened up to be able to launch local applications. Certainly there are ways to be able to do that, but they take kind of a lot of thought and often some level of development or working with IT to be able to put that out there. The Unified Service Desk client gives you something that's already local to the desktop to be able to springboard that, and you're not trying to tunnel back through a web-based application. You've got your local client that goes out and surfaces up the web-based application, and by the way, everything else that you need for that.
Brings it all together.
So changing gears, I thought, in the spirit of, Alan's question here, he's bringing up one of these newer areas of Dynamics, which is kind of the app framework that's within Dynamics 365 and being able to use that unified client inside of Dynamics as you're building things out as a way to provide an experience. In this case, Customer Service Hub being an example there, but you can build these out custom. You're not just limited to the one that Microsoft makes installable for you. So I thought maybe we could chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that'd be really, really good to do. For a lot of people, I think it's a little bit scary. It's change is hard, and it's funny because we force change on our users all day long, and then when we have to change something, we panic. Yeah, and it's very hypocritical. But I think it'd be good to talk about really, what this new client means for us as implementers. Yeah, and maybe take some of the fear away from it too.
Definitely. So, I think first and foremost, the fact of the matter is everything that you've been configuring inside of Dynamics 365 is available when you are going to be building out a new app. Think of an app as like a container or a folder that you're putting together that has all of these components that you've already configured inside of Dynamics 365. So, first thing, you're not having to throw out everything that you've already done. In fact, you get everything you've already done, and you can build on top of that.
Mm-hmm. It's really for the sake of the user. You're bringing it all together, but then not giving them too much, because that's the way we used to do things before we had apps, is it'd be really, really overwhelming. And so the user, unless we really locked them down with security, they had this big whole company worth of CRM that's kind of scary and overwhelming. And now with apps, we get to really focus the experience, and like what we were trying to do with Interactive Service Hub, and give that clean, polished experience for the exact users who need it.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I know nobody has ever heard this type of requirement from a user. I don't want to have all this junk up in my navigation menu. I just need like 3 things in here because those are the only 3 things I'm going to do. Why can't my navigation bar just have those 3 things, Britta?
Yeah. Matt. Yep. Never, ever heard that once a week for my whole career. Nope. That never absolutely every day comes up. Yes.
Yeah. But as far as like tools in the tool belt, it is the easiest way to be able to take that kind of intimidating, ribbon experience or the navigation menu experience and really slim it down. I use this especially as I'm trying to do kind of envisioning with different customers is show them just how simplified and streamlined these apps can be. Sometimes going a little bit too far on how simple it is. There's a talk track I had used over the years over the user maturity curve. And a lot of times I would show kind of different forms inside of Dynamics with, kind of the beginning users form, the intermediate users form, and the advanced users form. And that was a pretty good way to do it, but it was always the same navigation at the top. It was always the same kind of list of all the records I was seeing, the list of all the different reports that were potentially available, and it wasn't quite as poignant as, grabbing some of those screenshots, showing them in a PowerPoint. Now I can take those existing components, those same forms I would have built out, but I can also, put that into an experience of what's the first dashboard that you see when you log into the system. Maybe if you're using a more capable app, you have a more advanced dashboard that's being displayed to you, or it might be that you intend for people to use it in a little bit different of a way. So you get some of that fun of how you're kind of envisioning this client using it in these different user groups. Mm-hmm. And those can be based on kind of the type of work that they do, but also the familiarity they have, the excitement they have or lack thereof with technology.
Just confidence with navigating.
Exactly. And you can also help protect people from themselves by not making some things available.
Yep, always a good thing to do, to be good babysitters.
Right. So have you had much of an opportunity to start working with moving these around between environments, building out apps that way, or?
I haven't yet, especially not the unified client. I have been playing a little bit. I think reference panels are going to be really exciting. There's some cool just features we get on the form now that I'm really excited by, but I haven't been moving them. I've just been doing it in trial environments, so I haven't been shifting them around. Are there any gotchas to be aware of?
Yeah, a couple of things that I've learned along the way, and I intend to be publishing a blog post on this as well. But so apps are solution aware. We've talked about solution awareness in previous episodes as well, and apps definitely fall into that. But there are a couple of nuances to it. One is that if you want to add an app into a solution, so you've created the app, you want to now add it to a new solution, you might find that you go to the list of apps that you try to select from and you don't see this app that you just created. And you might wonder, why is it that I'm not seeing this? Well, as of today, this recording anyway, you can only add an app into a solution if it is a published app. So when you're looking at from the configuration side, the list of my apps versus from the settings screen, there's two sections of that. There's published and there's being worked on. So if something is sitting in that being worked on category, you can't actually add it to a solution yet.
Oh, okay.
So once you publish it, it can be added to a solution. So pretty straightforward there. But the other thing that you want to keep in mind is one of the nice things that we've already talked about is you get to have a custom ribbon or rather a custom menu that's part of that. It sits within it's called the sitemap when you're looking at the components that are included in your solution. When you add the app, it doesn't automatically add your sitemap in, the sitemap that's specific to that app. So you have to add that component in, make sure you don't miss it, or you're going to run into problems when you actually try to have it come through on the other side.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. So do we still have to go outside of the tool to customize the sitemap and hack it, or can you do that inside now?
No, you can do that inside of the application now. And that's true both for the custom apps that you're doing, and in a kind of workaround type of capacity, you can actually modify the standard out-of-the-box ribbon using that tool as well.
Oh, okay.
That one is a little tougher to get to. I'll track down a link to how you can do that. But yes, you can use that tool. Now, certainly, if you've been using other sitemap editors and that type of thing, those still work. It's still being created in the same way. But now you have an actual, from Microsoft way to be able to modify your sitemaps within the tool.
Nice. Yeah. Instead of hacking it and going third party like we've been doing for years. Nice to have it supported in the tool now. Well, yes, we've done great work with it, but it's nice to see it finally brought into the product.
Well, and especially if there are going to be different sitemaps for different apps, you need to have a consistent way of being able to manage those and move them between systems. So it is an important, it is an important place to have at the table there.
Yeah, good. We're really happy we have that now.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to cover on this one? I feel like we're at a pretty good point to wrap.
I think we've got it, yeah.
All right. Well, I'd like to say thanks to Alan for sending in the question, and hopefully the kind of additional conversation we've had here has been helpful. You listeners out there can also get your question answered by sending them in through our website or hitting us up on Twitter. Our information is at the end of the episode.
Thanks.
Thank you. You've been listening to Implement This with Britta Rexted and Matthew C. Anderson. Do you have a business problem you'd like us to discuss on the show? Reach us through our website, implementthis.org, where you can also subscribe to the podcast. We're on Twitter, too. Britta is at MacGyverCRM, and I'm at MC Anderson. Thanks so much for listening.